Okay, let's talk real quick, just housekeeping stuff. Spring break is coming up. Woo! Everyone here has different spring breaks. We're going off of mine, okay? Okay. As much as I love you all, I'm not doing your spring breaks and mine. So otherwise we would not be here the whole month of March. So May 20th we are taking off. So we are here this week. We're here, what did I say? May. Well, let's take off May too. That works for me. March 20th. Okay, we will not be here March 20th. So we have this week and next week. We take off a week, then we're coming back. Okay, so I'm going to give you this schedule and I'll put it on paper at some point. Originally, my desire was it wasn't my desire. My desire was not to teach this summer, okay? Then I got this harebrained idea that we need to teach in June. And then my parents asked me the other day, what are you going to do this summer? And I looked at Rob and I said, I'm really tired. Can we just not teach in June? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to change everything up here. So we're going to teach Luke from here till the end of April. Then we're going to come back May for 4 weeks, okay? And then what I'm going to do is we have a new book coming out, and it's called The Equation. It's all on the life of Joseph. It's one of those weird things. We wrote it, and I forgot we wrote it, okay, if you can even imagine. Someone said the other day, they're like, how do you forget it? Authors write books, and then you just how do you forget it? It's like a child. And I said, well, I've left my child places before, too, in the movie theater, at the park, things like that. So it makes total sense for me. But God reminded me at one point, so apparently he needs it out now. So what we're going to do in May, if you weren't with us when we did Genesis, I'm going to pick the top 4 weeks on the life of Joseph that we did. And the premise is going to be how to get through life is to put God in the equation of what's going on with you. Me plus problem equals stress, me plus problem plus God equals peace. So we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff on that, but I'm going to take the month of May to do that, okay? Then we're going to do a marriage class, and we're going to do it on Tuesday nights, and it will be through the month of May. So if, in fact, most of this is just to get content for Roku, so just so you know, if you want to come, you're welcome to. We will have it at a different place. I'll give you all the information, but we want to do it off of our book, The Truth About Marriage. So if you have marriages that you're just I hate my husband, I can tell you I've been there for the first 10 years of my marriage, did not think it was going to work, prayed that God would do something to make my husband go away, and he never did, thankfully. And I'm just so grateful now, but you know how you just have those times when you first get married and you're like, what did I just get into? And he was all about business and work, and he didn't really care too much about the family and what was going on. So it was really tough. But God grabbed a hold of his heart and changed him, and I am so grateful now that I stuck it out. So we'll do a lot of that. We're interviewing a couple the second week that she basically hated her husband. She had a place to move out. She was done, couldn't stand him, and how God grabbed a hold of her heart and just changed their marriage. And they're so stinking cute today. It's the funniest thing. So anyway, there's hope for marriages. I want you to know that if you are sucking wind in yours right now, don't leave. Do not walk out, okay? Because God is going to do something really great. So, okay, how's all that? Okay, let's talk about the very first page. You should have a picture of a man in a pink. Hopefully, does everyone have it? Pink and white. Okay, this is Pastor Saeed Abedini. I don't know if you've seen him on the news or not. He is an American citizen. He apparently was from Iran originally. He got saved. He started building house churches in Iran in the early 2000s. He lives here in Idaho with his family, his wife, and his 2 little kids. Went back to Iran to build an orphanage. They grabbed him and threw him in one of the most notorious prisons for 8 years. Okay, it's a bad deal. They want him to recant his faith. He refuses. We're talking torture, psychological warfare. He said it's like a prison inside of a prison because you have this whole group that it's a nightmare. Okay, he's doing everything he can just to make it, but he refuses to give up. He says, if I have to die for Jesus, that's what I do, whatever. So anyway, so I want you to have that, and I want you to stick that somewhere where you pray. And please tear that out, put it in your Bible, put it somewhere in the morning where you know. Stick it on your refrigerator every time you walk by. God, give him the strength. Give him everything he needs to make it through. Because he said that the people that are torturing him and doing this, they're just empty jars. They need to be filled with Jesus. And he's the only person in there that will point them to the direction of him. So we just need to pray for him. Jay Sekula, he's with this American Center for Law and Justice. I don't know that much about him, but anyway, they all took a trip yesterday to meet with the UN to see if they could somehow get him out. So anyway, we need to just be uplifting him in prayer, and that's what I wanted to do today. Okay, what happened this week? I had a blonde moment, okay, which apparently I have a lot. But, okay, because we do balloons here, we go and we get helium in them. Okay, so Sunday we had this thing at our house, and I needed to go get some balloons. Once again, there's a helium shortage, I guess. Okay, so I went to get helium. They're like, yeah, we're all out. And I'm like, I swear you guys just say that because you don't want to make my balloons. I'm thinking that's what's happening here. So I just said, well, just give me the balloons. I'll blow them up myself. Okay. Yeah. Here's balloons that you blow up yourself. I'm like, why aren't they sticking up? And Rob, he looks at me and he goes, are you joking? And I'm like, no, I'm really not. And he said, Lisa, you got to put helium in them. I'm like, I don't ever remember that. Okay, so that's my stupid balloon thing. And then my son apparently doesn't trust me enough, so he bought some jeans and he needed to get them washed. So he comes in late at night and he's like, I need you to wash my jeans. I'm like, okay. He comes in, will you remember? Yes, I will remember. So I went to lock the house up, and look what he had. All over the entire house, he had jeans. Don't forget my jeans in the washer. Okay, like we're talking doorposts hanging all over, so I could not possibly forget if I wanted to. So I got them done. See, I'm a good mom after all. Okay. Now, I had another thought. Last week we talked about, I remember what it was. We talked about how Jesus went and got by himself so that he could hear God speak to him or whatever he wanted to tell him. So I wanted to tell you, I was walking walking the rec center a couple weeks ago, and we have a lot of people calling saying, will you do a nighttime Bible study? We work during the day. My answer is always, heck to the no. Okay, I'm not doing that. But, so I really started thinking about this summer. And I know you guys think I'm a salesperson for Roku, but I'm really not. But here's my thinking. They're $79. Buy one. And then I started thinking, because that way you can have your own Bible studies this summer. I don't need to be here. If you're here and you didn't do Revelation, invite your friends over. It's a great way for you to meet your neighbors and say, hey, come over for a Bible study. We'll just turn this person on. It doesn't have to be me. I've been watching Max Lucado. He's got the coolest series right now on prayer, and he's on there. You've got your Mark Driscoll's, your, I don't know, I've given you a list of a million names, but there's a lot of good teaching on there, and it doesn't have to be this particular Bible study, but it would be a great thing. Get all your neighbors over, say we're going to have a swim party, let the kids go swim, and we'll sit in the house and watch Bible study. They're $79. If you can't hook it up, call me. And I will come to your house and hook it up for you. Okay, that's how. If you have wireless internet, you're good to go. That's all you need in your house. And it's free. Once you buy the $79, you are fine. So that was my big thought for the moment. Okay, let's pray and go home now. That was a long, involved introduction. Okay. Last week, if you are new here, we've been working our way through the book of the Gospel of Luke. And what we are doing is, what are we doing? Last week, we're right in the middle of Peter, and Peter is coming to grips with who Jesus is. And so what we talked about last week is that if Jesus is just some guy, some compassionate man, some hero that died for his country, just some teacher, then you and I can basically just go on with our life. We can do anything we want to do. We can divorce our husbands, and we can go get drunk, and we can have affairs, and we can do whatever we want because it doesn't really matter. But if he's God and we've invited him into our life, now everything in our life changes. Those things, we can't do that anymore because now we serve our King as Jesus. And so it changes our whole life when we ask him to come into our life. So then we talked about the importance of spending time alone and getting to know, reading our Bibles and praying and spending alone time with God. And then, if you were here last week, 1 minute before we left, I got on this roll of how I met Nancy at Walmart, okay? I have no idea why I told you that story. So it frustrated me after I left. I couldn't wait. David put it up online, and so I came home late and flipped it on, fast-forwarded it to the end, and I remembered why I told you. So It actually is. I missed 4 pages of notes last week, so I got on a story and then forgot why. But now I'm going to tell you why today. So for those of you that have waited all week to wonder what Lisa was talking about last week, you're going to get it today. So anyway, the whole point was that Jesus went away and got by himself so that he could pray and read and get his spiritual, I call it our spiritual tank, refilled so that, so that was what the Walmart story was about, so that he could go for the rest of the day and complete his job. Okay, so then we have to go back and say, what does that mean? I'm a mom, I work at, Target, whatever, that's my job. No, our job is really different because as a Christian, our job is to let other people know about how to get to heaven. So that's our job. So when we go and meet with God in the morning, our purpose is to get to know him, to love him, but to say, okay, God, now you've given me this sphere of influence around with the people around me, wherever that is. Now it's my job to share you with them. So you're going to empower me and you're going to open the doors and you're going to give me people to come in contact with during the day. So that was my whole point with my friend Nancy, because I didn't know her, and we just talked in the line at Walmart, and I had a card with me. Did I even have a card? I don't think I did. I didn't have my purse that day. Anyway, I just gave her the website. I don't even know how you found us after that. But my whole point is that God, all through the day, puts people in your path and in my path, and we don't notice that. We're just like, oh yeah, we're at the store, we're at the bank, or whatever. And today I want us to say, okay, I want that to change for us. I want it to be that we wake up and we say, God, today, I need to share you with someone. Now, you need to put that person in my path so that I can do that. So, the reason why we wrote our one-way book, used to be Got Heaven, is because I didn't have anything. Like for me just to walk up to someone and say, hi, do you know Jesus? Let me tell you the plan of salvation. Okay, I'm bold, but not that bold. Okay, I wouldn't even know where to begin. So I needed something to be able to hand to someone. So we wrote our little Got Heaven, which now is our one-way book. So what I want to do is I put a bunch of them back there, and I want you to take some of them this week. If you want to pay for them, they're $1 a piece, whatever. If you're like, oh, well, that will cut into my coffee money. Think about this. Like 1 cup of coffee is what, $4 or $5? 5 Got Heavens, think you could save 5 people for eternity. Okay, all you got to do is, if you can't afford them, I always say pick them up anyway. I don't care. Now, the other thing we have back there is your are the cards for here. And I keep these in my purse, and I'm telling you, you don't even have to have it for this study. If you go to a different study, if you go to a church that you're like, I want to promote my church, find cards, get cards made up. I don't care, But anyway, this is just a tool. So these things are just tools so that as we're out and about, roaming around during the day, and we come in contact with someone, you can say, hey, my first question I ask is, do you go to church? And it was the coolest thing. I was studying yesterday at a restaurant, and the restaurant was like totally dead. Nobody was in there. I couldn't even find a waitress, okay? I peeked through the window to see if there was a cook back there. And they were all in the back, and there was a couple of people. So I just went and sat down and just waited for someone to show up. And then I kept thinking, okay, it's been a long time. I'm kind of hungry. So I went back and I peeked through the window again, and finally someone saw me. But anyway, the girl came, and she was like, what can I get you to eat? And then she sat down because there's no one. We had this long conversation. She saw my Revelation thing, and we had the nicest, longest conversation about God, and it was so cool. But I realized that God made sure that there was no one in the restaurant so that we could have this conversation. So we have to start looking at our days a little bit different than what we normally do. So all these things are just tools for you to use so that you can invite somebody, or because you just want, our job is like Jesus' job, to go out, share the gospel, let people know how they can get to heaven. That's kind of what we're here for. And as a Christian, that's what we do. I seem to go to Walmart all the time. I really don't, but for some reason I had to go there this weekend again. And so it was so funny. I was walking by this lady, and she was in one of those like little scooter things. I'm always jealous of people because like I want to be in one of those because I think it'd be kind of fun to tool around like that. But anyway, she goes by me, and I feel this little nudge, God going, you need to give her a card. No, I'm busy. She's not going to want to hear that. So I just went on. And so then a few minutes later, it just wouldn't go away. So I said, okay, if I see her again, I'll think about it. Okay, so of course I turned the corner, and there she is. Okay, so now, but she's going that way. So I start walking after her. Then I feel like a stalker. Okay, so I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So I threw my little thing out to God and said, look, here's the deal. I'm going to do what I want to do in Walmart, and if I see her again, I will give her a card. Okay, well, of course, I walked through the whole thing. Just about when I'm checking out, here she comes. I'm like, serious. So I hand her a card, and I'm like, I don't even know why I'm giving this to you. I don't know if you go to church, whatever. I just felt like I'm supposed to do this. Here's a card to Bible study. If you work, it's online. Just want to let you know. Thanks, bye. Okay, I will probably never see this woman again. But what I realized is that I don't know what her day was like. Maybe she got up that morning and said, God, I just need someone to care. I mean, we just don't know what the people in the line at the bank or the Walmart or the Target, what is going on in their life. And we want to be a blessing to them, and it may be just something simple like a little card. I was at Costco the other day. Sounds like all I do is shop, doesn't it? I really don't. But I was at Costco the other day, and I saw this girl that works there, and she's worked there, I think, since early 1800s. I mean, she's been there forever. Anyway, she saw me, and she said, oh, Lisa, she goes, do you still do your Bible study? And I said, yeah. And she said, you gave me a card. She goes, I was cleaning out my drawer, and I must have given her a card like 10 years ago. Like, that's how long ago it was. She said, I just found your Bible study card, so are you still doing Bible study? So it's like you just never know what a little card, or they could take a one-way book and dump it in their drawer, but someday God can use that, and you will be the vehicle for that. So that was my whole purpose for my Walmart story. And I was reading a book called Just Walk Across the Room by Bill Hybels, and he tells us a little bit, he explains this story, and it was so good I thought I would share it with you. He said he was at a luncheon, and it was a group of, I don't know, businessmen or whatever. And he's sitting at the table, and across from him is a man that has a Muslim name. They were introducing everyone. Muslim name, looks Muslim, he's pretty sure he is. And so after they introduced everyone, the Muslim man looks at Bill Hybels and mouths to him, I love your books. And he's looking around like, me? And he's like, yes. So he went to him afterwards, and he said, talk to me. How did all of this happen? And he says, because you apparently are a Christian. And he said, I am an African-American Muslim man living in the South. And he said, I was involved in a business where you have to always go to like cocktail parties and all those kind of things. So he said, I was at a cocktail party one time, and he said, automatically everyone's in their own little cliques, and I'm inevitably standing in the corner by myself. That's just what it is. And he said, all of a sudden, a man steps away from his little clique and walks over to me, shakes my head, walked 10 steps, and shook my hand and said, how are you? We got to talking. He said, I'm a Muslim. This man says, I'm a follower of Jesus. And the Christian guy looked at him and said, can we get together? Like, totally sincere. He wasn't going to slam his faith. He said, I want to know what you believe. I really want to know and understand what a Muslim really actually believes. So he said they started meeting. And he said day after day, or week after week, every time they would meet, he said the man would tell me what they believed in their religion. And he said, and then one day, the man asked the Christian man, what do you believe? And he said, I was able to share the gospel with him. And he said he went home, and a few weeks later, the Muslim man said he was home alone. He felt compelled to pray. He kneeled down, told God how he felt, gave his heart to Jesus, and his entire life changed, he said, because that man took 10 steps to walk across the room. And I thought, that's the coolest story ever. But I think we get so busy, especially as women, and we've got dance, and we've got this, we've got soccer, and we have to go to the grocery store, we have to cook dinner. We're just busy, and I get that. But I think if we started looking at the world around us just a little bit different, like you see someone at the store and you know the clerk is taking forever, and you can actually spend 2 minutes and get a lot out of that person just by hey, how you doing? What, do you live around here? Do you go to church? Blah, blah, blah. Here's a card. Real simple. It's kind of fun. Bill Hybels says that the distance we walk in our lifetime is 115,000 miles. Okay, I want you to know that mine will be 117,000 because I walk 3 miles a day at the rec center. So I was like, mine's going to be a little more than yours, okay? But he says that is 4 times walking around planet Earth. And his point is that what if 10 steps, just like the Christian man took, 10 steps to walk over to ask someone at the grocery store to just have a conversation, changes that person's life for eternity. Like how cool, and we get the privilege of being able to share our faith with other people. And so that's what I think that Jesus spent his time with God about. When he went away, he spent the time with his Father, and I think it was like, God, fill me, bring along people, because our job now is people. And that's what I think Peter is going to learn. Now, all that. Verse 43, I think we're in chapter 4, verse 43. Last week, where we ended with Jesus getting up early, going out, and the crowds came and found him. And they were like, please, please don't leave us. And this is what he says in verse 43. It should be the first page of your handout. But he said to them, I must preach the good news, the gospel of the kingdom of God to other cities and towns also, for I was sent for this purpose, okay? Which made me think when I see that word purpose, and we're a Christian now, it's our purpose too. It's not just Jesus. It's not your pastor's. It's your purpose just like it's mine, to be able to go out and tell people how they can come to know Christ. And verse 44, and he continued to preach in the synagogue of Galilee. Now, what's not in there is the verse that I just told you about before, but these people begged him to stay. Now, think about it. Think about why would they want him to leave? Like, here's little Capernaum. And he's got this, all of a sudden Jesus shows up. He's a faith healer. He casts out demons. And you can just think of the governor going, hey, we could set him up, give him a stage, give him a platform, charge people to come see him. Think of all the hotels and the restaurants that could be booming business, you know. And you wonder if they're thinking that by Jesus being part of Capernaum, we want him to stay. Please don't ever leave because we got a good thing going here. But Jesus told them, you know what, I wasn't sent for that purpose. I wasn't sent to Capernaum to put you guys on the map. Okay, I was sent for the 3 years that I have left to tell people that they need a Savior and that Jesus himself is the only way to God. And that was Jesus's purpose. And he had this really, really short window of opportunity. And I think for us, we get really complacent. See, I think Jesus could have been complacent. He could have said, you know, I had a good thing going here. They like me. They're not trying to kill me like they did in Nazareth. These people really like me. They follow me. They come hang out to my sermons. They're like, he's like, yes. And he could have been complacent and just said, I think I'll just stay here where people like me. But he didn't. He said, that's not my purpose, to be liked by lots of people. And I think that we as women can get complacent in our area of where we are. You could be like the best soccer mom, the best homeroom mother, if they still have that at school. Your neighbors think you're wonderful because you always bring them food. And so everyone loves you, but the problem is you've never opened your mouth to say, you need Jesus, okay? And when you do that, the dynamics now change. Because remember, these people that love Jesus now, in 3 years, crucify him. They're like, Barabbas, Barabbas, get rid of Jesus. And they throw him on a cross. And you're like, what? How is that possible? So when you start stepping out for your faith, you might not be liked. I had a girl tell me last week, I just became a Christian and my friends think I'm nuts. I'm like, welcome to being a Christian. That's a big part of it. So if everyone loves you, you might want to sit back and say, have I told any of these people who love me about Jesus? Because sometimes they don't like that. But it's our job to do that. And it was Jesus' job, and he didn't stay where it was comfortable. He took a step and got out. My son Micah, he and Shayla, his wife, they have a friend, and he had a heart transplant. He's 25 years old, okay? And he came to work the other day, and he was really sad, and I said, Micah, what's wrong? He said, Mom, our friend's dying. It didn't work. They're trying to get him another heart transplant. They don't know what to do. I'm 25. And he said, you know, Mom, it was a reminder to me. I never shared Jesus with him. So he said, last night I wrote him a big old Facebook message and told him that he needed to come to faith in Christ. The next day, they all went to the hospital, and Shayla's mom just sat down and said, this is what the gospel says. You need Jesus in your heart. He prays to ask Jesus in his life. It was kind of a cool deal. And then he went off to California to see if they'll do surgery on him. But anyway, it was just a reminder to me that when you and I walk out this door, anything can happen. Like, I don't know what tomorrow brings. I could walk out the door and get hit by a bus. I mean, who knows? But that's why I want to just say, if you have someone on your heart that you're feeling like, man, I really need to invite them to church, or invite them to Bible study, or invite them to just come over for coffee so I can tell them about Jesus, do it. Okay, I just want to encourage you to just make that something in your head to do today. I love to travel. It's my favorite thing. I have 2 trips that I want to take before I die. Okay, one, I want to take all of our kids to Israel, and I want them to see Egypt and Israel. It's like a dream of mine. I'm so excited, but that will be someday. And my second trip is I want to go to Africa, and I want to take all the kids to Africa and go on an African safari. Now, when I get on a plane from here to there, if in fact this ever happens, I expect I'm going to come home, okay? And I was just reading the other day, I thought it would be really cool. You see the balloons, the big hot air balloons, that you see them going over all the African safaris, so you can see the giraffes running. I'm thinking, that's the coolest thing. Well, the other day, I don't know if you saw the news, but they had a balloon crash in Egypt, okay? People just like me on a balloon because they want to go see whatever, and up in midair, it catches on fire, and it falls, 18 people died, okay? It was horrifying. And I'm thinking, those people, like, they went there thinking they were going to come home, and they didn't. And now eternity is at stake for them. So I was hoping today we could just talk, like, we need to step out. We need to take that faith step and do whatever, and we're giving you the tools back there to do it, and now it's going to be up to you. Okay, that was all pretty heavy, so I'm going to tell you a joke. Okay, so, well, first of all, Cheyenne, yesterday, she came to me, and she started laughing, and she said, Mom, I embarrassed myself so bad at school today. And she said, I had this report that I had to get up and talk about Tim Tebow, okay? And the book Tim Tebow, I think it's called Through His Eyes, okay, is what I think the book's called. She said, so I get up, her teacher hates Christians. Like, she goes to a public school, and he's made it very, very clear, like, I hate Tim Tebow. So she gets up, and she said, Mr. whatever his name is, I'm doing a report on your favorite person, Tim Tebow. And he's like, I can't stand that guy, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so he asks a question, and he says, how was this book written? And she didn't really know how to answer it, so she goes, through his eyes. Okay, so you got to understand, and nobody, like, she wasn't trying to make a joke, but then she started thinking about it, like, you don't write a book through your eyes. Like, then she started picturing, like, pencils in his eyes. And, okay, so she's telling me this, like, I'm crying laughing because I'm thinking it's the funniest thing I ever heard. And she said, Mom, there was not one person that cracked a smile. I laughed the entire way through my report. I was so embarrassed. And I said, well, if it's any consolation, I'm going to tell a joke tomorrow that I might get the same reaction too. But I thought this was so funny. Okay, so there's this, I get jokes for Revelation. So if you're in Revelation, this is your joke today. But Revelation's so overwhelming, so we have to break it up with funny things. But I thought this was kind of cute, so I thought you guys would enjoy it. So there's this lady on an airplane, and she travels a lot, but she gets nervous, so she takes her Bible. So she sits down in her seat, opens her Bible, and the man sitting next to her just starts scoffing, like, yeah, whatever. And finally the plane starts going, and he said, you don't really believe that, do you? And she's like, well, absolutely. This is God's word. Everything in it is true. And he said, really? He goes, so this man gets swallowed by a fish? And she said, well, that would be Jonah and the whale. And he said, well, how do you know that that's true? And he said, that seems kind of odd. And she said, well, I don't really know. But she said, when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask him, and then I will know all the answers. And he laughed, and he goes, well, what happens if he doesn't end up in heaven? And she said, well, then you can ask him. I thought that was so funny. Every single time I read that this week, I laughed out loud. Like, that's how funny I thought it was, okay? Well, that was the cutest little joke. Okay, so anyway, thank you for laughing, because I could have been like Cheyenne, and you could have just stood there looking at me like I was the weirdest person. Could you imagine being in high school and having oh my gosh, what a nightmare. Okay. Back to Jesus. What Jesus, I think, is teaching us is that he has 3 years to complete his mission, and 3 years, and we have like maybe 50 or 60. So he didn't just lollygag around Capernaum, he went on. And so the takeaway for that little section is, do not put off ministry. If in fact and this is where you alluded to this last week, if you're a stay-at-home mom, go to the park, meet women, get a Roku, invite them for Bible study, do whatever you need to do, because your ministry is with kids. I went to the rec center the other day. They had all these moms with their little kids in dance class. I'm thinking, someone needs to be there talking to them about Jesus. But that's not my realm anymore because I'm older, thankfully. Maybe you go to school. If you are in like college or high school, start a Bible study. Cheyenne did. I told you that. You don't even have to know a lot. It's like Francis Chan, they have videos for kids. So Francis Chan has his high school student video, And last week, she had Micah speak there, and she said, Mom, we had over 30 kids there. That's a big deal for a Liberty High School Bible study. So anyway, but do something that's in your realm. If you have a job, my dad owns a steel company, and they started down there. He just said one day, we're starting a Bible study at lunch. Like at lunchtime, one day a week, we're bringing in a pastor, we're doing something. Because his faith is that important to the people that are around him that that's what needs to be done. I was thinking about, if you're here and you're retired and you're like, well, I don't have kids, I don't have a job, and I'm retired, then find something. Maybe you like to garden or knit or sew or whatever. We have a guy at a church we used to go to, and he played baseball in the senior citizen softball league. And he did that so that he could share his faith and invite these men to a Bible study. So find whatever it is that is your niche, and then add God into that, and then go for it, because that's kind of what we're supposed to do. This is going to sound harsh, but it doesn't matter what age you are, because if you're still here, God wants to use you. When he's done using you, you'll be dead. Okay, sounds horrible, but it's kind of true. As long as you're alive, he still has a purpose for you to be here. So let's figure out what that is. Don't get complacent, and let's step out. So, okay, Luke chapter 5, verse 1. Let's move on. I don't know what time it is. Jeez, it feels like it's forever. Serious. Okay. Last week we talked about Peter. Then Jesus goes to preach the gospel throughout Galilee. Now, what happens in Luke 5, chapter 1, we're not sure if it's like the next day, like he heals Peter's mother, he goes out and then he has this little preaching job here, or if this is another time. So you can't really tell that from here. So let's just start with verse 1. Now it occurred that while the people pressed upon Jesus to hear the message of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, which is the Sea of Galilee. So now the whole scene shifts and we're in Galilee. Now, I had you guys look at Holy Land books. If you want to purchase these, they're $15. You can put it in the donation thing back there. If you don't and you want to just look at it, you can just put it back in the back there. Whatever works for you is fine with me. I don't care. If you can't afford it and you really want one, I say take it. So I'm just but it helps us because we do have to pay for those. So anyway, if you go to page 129 in your Holy Land book, I want to always make sure that you see the places that we are studying. The Sea of Galilee is a big, huge lake. It is 13 miles by 8 miles. I wanted you just to see the pictures on page 129. If you just skip through all the pages, you'll be able to see them. I wrote page 136 on here, but I don't really know why. I think because on the left-hand side, you can see how big this body of water is. So this is the water that Peter walks on water, and this is where Jesus did the majority of his ministry. So on the north end of this sea is Capernaum, and that's where all this is going on. So you can kind of envision that Jesus is walking along here, and he's teaching these people, and you can see, like if you look on, let's just say page 134. And you see that there's the lake, but there's all this land, and you can almost picture Jesus standing there right by the lake, and he's preaching, but now he doesn't really have anywhere to go because the crowds keep pressing in on him, and so he either has to go swimming or he has to get into a boat. Now, do not ask me why I did this, but you do not have verse 2 in your handout. And I don't know how I missed it, but I will read it to you and then you can write it in someday when you want to. This is what verse 2 says that you don't have. And he, Jesus, saw 2 boats drawn up by the lake, but the fishermen had gone down from them and were washing their nets. Now, I wanted to show you a picture which is not very good in your handout. I make these pictures colored, but because colored is so expensive, we decided to put everything into just black and white, which you don't see it very good. But that is actually, it's called the Jesus boat. And they found that in 1986 on the northwest shore on the Sea of Galilee. It's like something happened we went and saw it. Something happened with the lake and it kind of receded a little bit and someone was walking along and they saw some wood sticking out and they actually recovered this and said it was a boat like would have been with Peter at the time of Jesus. So it's kind of cool to see these things that, in reality. Verse 3, and getting into one of the boats, the one that belonged to Simon Peter, he requested him to draw away a little from the shore, and he sat down and continued to teach the crowd of people from the boat. So Jesus, we see this picture, he's now in the boat because there's so many people listening to him. And I was thinking originally, like, why would he ask Peter? But now I remembered that he knows Peter because he spent the night at Peter's house and he hung out with Peter. So it's not like Peter's a stranger and like, hey, buddy, can I borrow your boat? Like, he's like, hey, Pete, can I borrow your boat? And that makes sense why he did that. So I want to think about Peter for a second, because here Peter is, he just got done fishing. Okay, he's got all of his fish going on, which there weren't very many that day. And he's just kind of going about his daily life, which is what you and I do every single day. For Peter, his fishing business was like, I fish in the morning, I clean the fish, I wash the nets, I get prepared to get up in the morning and go fishing again tomorrow. It's just mundane. It's just what we do every day, and it's kind of boring, but that's just life. And I think for a lot of us, we're in that position too. We get up, we do the same thing, we get the kids to school, we go grocery shopping, do the laundry, take them to dance, come home, cook dinner, you know the rest. Okay, so that may be just what your life is, but for Peter, it's kind of like the same thing. Every day was the same for him. And so I can just envision, here's Peter standing over here, sitting over here, washing his nets, and here's Jesus teaching, but Peter's got one ear to Jesus, kind of half listening to him, while he's working on his stuff, because he's kind of preoccupied with his life. And I think that that's what we do. Like, we show up here, which is wonderful, or we show up at church, which is a great deal. But a lot of times we're kind of preoccupied. We're like thinking, I got a lot to do today. So we're half listening because we got a lot to do. And I'm thinking that's what Peter is doing. And so it reminded me about purpose, because I think that we can go through the motions all day long, and I think we live in a nation of very bored people. It's hard to imagine, but if you look at your kids, they'll be like, I have every video game, I have a basketball court, I have a volleyball court, I have paintball guns, and I'm bored. And you're like, how in the world can you be bored? And I think it's because nobody has a purpose. They're just going about, just like Peter, I'm doing my nets day in, day out, I'm kind of bored. And I want to talk about that for a few minutes, because I think the problem is that many people will be like, I'm just going to watch TV and I'm going to read novels and I'm just going to stay home. I don't have a reason for living. And I want us to walk away today and say, I have a reason for living. Because most people, they don't have Jesus in their life. They're just filling time. They're filling space and they're filling time. And I have to say, what happens at the end of that when I play that all the way out to the end? Filling time until what? Until you die? Like, that is just not a way to live. Like, who wants to fill their days with just nothing until they die? So there has to be a purpose to our life. King Solomon had this problem in the Old Testament. He wrote Ecclesiastes, he wrote Proverbs. Solomon was incredibly rich. I am going to think he was incredibly handsome. His mother was beautiful Bathsheba, who caught David's eye. And King David, who they say was so cute when he was a kid, so I'm assuming he grew up. So you have the two of them have this beautiful son, Solomon. And he had everything. He had wealth and women and booze and horses and building projects and everything, and he could never, ever find happiness. It wasn't there because everything he tried to do was under the sun. And God is saying there's much more to life than just what's here, what we go about during the day. Micah made me laugh the other day. He's our 25-year-old. He's walking through the house, and Dusty, who's our 15-year-old, he's been playing this computer game. Can't remember the name of it. But it wasn't one of those like killing, slice the kid their throats and what the disgusting stuff. It was a building computer game. So he would build, he'd search for gold, he would build projects, and it was kind of cool. And then he would spend his extra money. He'd be like, Mom, for $5 I can buy a dozer, or I can buy a pick, or whatever. So he would take his money that he earned and he would spend it on this stupid game, which I'm like, whatever, at least he's not out doing drugs, so I'm good to go with that. So, but it's kind of like he walks to the kitchen and Micah says, so how's your game? And he goes, yeah, I'm not really playing it anymore. And Micah started laughing. He goes, you got to the end of the game, didn't you? And he goes, yeah, I did. He goes, you have bought everything, you have done everything, and now it's just not fun anymore, isn't it? And he goes, Micah, Dusty, you have the Solomon syndrome. And he said, because that's just life. Like, you can walk away and have everything and still have nothing. And so Ecclesiastes 1 says this, Solomon writes this, he says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanities of vanities, all is vanity. Now think about that. He's saying everything that you and I do is vanity if there's not a purpose attached to it. Verse 3, what advantage does man have in all his work which he does under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Now, we know this because we have a lot of kids. I cannot believe we have 7 minutes. Look at all my notes. We're going to have to just continue on next week. Anyway, our kids were out on Sunday, and we have little grandkids, and then we have our kids, and then us, and then my parents came, and it was so fun because my mom and dad got to hold baby Briley, which is their great-granddaughter. But it was funny because we were sitting there, and Shayla said, she's the one that's getting ready to have a baby, she said, Lisa, do you have pictures of Micah when he was a baby so I can see like what my baby's going to look like, basically? So we found a whole scrapbook that apparently that's what I used to do before I did this. I scrapbooked because I have years and years of scrapbooking, so I was kind of proud of myself. Brought her out, and they were looking through it, and then they were laughing. They were like, oh my gosh, what were you wearing? Why did your hair look like that? Why does Rob have a mullet? What's the deal with the big mustache? Like, I mean, they were just, they were laughing. They thought it was so funny. But while they were looking at this, the older boys went out to play basketball. Okay, and we're watching them, and they're playing basketball, and they come back, and this is what they said. I'm sore, I'm sick, I'm going to throw up, I'm so out of shape. I mean, so all this. And it was a great reminder to me that I used to be their age with those pictures, because when we had little kids, they were their kids' age now, and it's just a generation, and generations come and they go, and they come and they go. I told Rob the other day he was worried about something in business, and I said, the cool thing about this is that in 40 years, we're dead, okay? It doesn't even matter anymore. It's all our kids' responsibility at that. But that's the truth of it. Okay, so if that's the truth, what in the world is our purpose here? Solomon seeks out to find it. He has 700 wives, 300 girlfriends, so he's like, well, sex isn't it? Because apparently I've got a lot going to that. He builds gardens and hires slaves. He drinks wine. He hires like Jay Leno to come over and tell him funny things. And nothing makes this man satisfied, because he says, under the sun, nothing will make you happy. So if you're here and you're just like, if I just had money, I'd be happy. You won't, trust me. If you just said, if I had a husband, I would be happy. No, you won't. If you're here and you say, if I just didn't have my husband, I would be happy. No, you won't. I know that sounds weird. Some of you are just like, I hate my husband. I want a divorce. And I'm telling you, that's not the answer. You're not going to be happier without him, because now you got a divorce and kids, and that man's in your life for the rest of your life. So just make it work is my thing. If you have a dream job and you're thinking that's going to make you happy, no, it won't. There's lots of hours, lots of stress. Look at what I found in your handout about New England Patriots Tom Brady. It's in your handout. During the 2007-08 NFL regular season, New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady set the record for most touchdown passes in a regular season, paving the way for his winning the MVP award. At the age of 30, he has already won 3 Super Bowls, an accomplishment that set him apart as one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. In 2005, Tom Brady was interviewed by 60 Minutes journalist Steve Croft. Despite the fame and career accomplishments he had achieved, Brady told Croft that he felt like something was still lacking in his life. Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me? I mean, maybe a lot of people would say, hey, man, this is what it's all about. I reached my goal, my dream, my life, me. I think it's got to be more than this. I mean, this can't be all that it's cracked up to be. Croft pressed Brady as to what the right answer was, and Brady added, what's the answer? I wish I knew. I love playing football, and I love being quarterback for the team, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of parts about me that I am just trying to find. And I read that, and I'm like, there you go. Solomon says it. Brady says it. There's got to be more. And so this is what Ecclesiastes Solomon says at the end, chapter 12, verse 13. He says, the conclusion is this: when all has been heard, fear God, keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. He says, if your life is not all about God and doing things for him, nothing will ever satisfy you. You're going to the grocery store is just mundane until you add on, I'm going to share the gospel with somebody today. Your life with your kids is mundane until you're like, I'm going to read them a story about Jesus in their little baby, Bible book so that something will happen for eternity. Oh, when I see you, that means it's like time to go. I have 2 minutes. Okay. And so Solomon ends his life saying, there's nothing that matters except what you do for God. And so I go back to my thing that if you're here and you're like, I just want a husband, I'm just going to tell you that they're great, but they're a lot of work, okay? I always tell Rob, if something happens to me, I really want you to get married because you need to have a wife. But if something happens to you, I'm never getting remarried. I said, it took me 35 years to train you. I'm not doing that all over again, okay? But it's kind of like whatever you do, you can just picture him like rolling his eyes at me. But if you want your dream job or you want the divorce or you want whatever, nothing is going to satisfy you until you do what Solomon says. Add God into every single thing and make your life all about him. We went to dinner the other night and some people behind us, I said, what do you do? And he says, I'm retired. I'm like, you're retired? He's really young. I said, what'd you do? It's in this job I hated. So just bided my time until I could retire. And I was like, that is so sad. Who wants to live like that? What if you had a job you hate or kids that you're raising and it's really stressful? It's not going to be good until you add God into that and make it about him. Then it's going to give life a purpose. And that's what I think Peter's going to come to, which of course we didn't get to it today. But Peter's going to come to that conclusion next week, because we didn't make it there, that it has to all be about Jesus. It can't be about fishing and his family business and those kind of things. But unless it's about Jesus, we're going to be bored to tears. So we need to sit back and say, what do I need to change in my life to make my life, when I wake up in the morning, all about him? To say my days now, I can do all these fun things with the kids, but if Jesus isn't attached to it and sharing him with other people, it's meaningless. Life is meaningless. You're going to be bored. I'm going to be bored. That's life.